Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this month's episode of the book to film adaptation. And it is a good one. It is Christine by Stephen King. Now, this was released in April 1983. It was then adapted to screen twice, but I'll be looking at the first version, which was actually released in December 1983. So literally the same year the film came out that the book was released. I'll be looking at three things as normal: how good is the film, how good is the book, and how well does the book take from, well, how well does the film take from the book. So first things first, the film. Now, I know in most cases, you know, majority of the time I do read the book before I watch the film, but in this one, I've seen this film several times before I even bought this book. And I mean, I love this cover though. Like literally, Stephen King has so many different covers of all these books, but it's my favourite cover. But the film, it's just so good. Like, it's got the right amount of atmosphere, it's got the build up, it's got the characters, just like the death scenes are really good, like the practical effects with Christine as well, the car. So, you know, when she's sort of like fixing herself and becoming back to normal, I'm like, wow, it genuinely looks like she's fixing herself. And obviously filmed it in reverse and then reversed the film, but it's just so brilliant. I love the murders. I love just everything about it. It's just so well done. And the plot is basically Arnie and Dennis, they're driving past this pasture, and Arnie spots Christine, who's beat up and rusty and we don't even think will work, and Arnie is guaranteed to have her. He has to have her. So he buys Christine off of the brother of the person that owned Christine. And then he sort of fixes her up, but she's actually fixing herself because she is a demon car. Yay, demon car. I don't know about you, but especially with the price of everything, at one point, like, her mileometer's going back and she's fixing herself, and you don't actually have to put that much into it. You just have to sell your soul. And I'm like, do you know what? Can I do that? Can I sell my soul to a demon car so that I can, you know, get it a lot cheaper? Because, you know, I'm hopefully going to have a car soon, and I don't, you know, the cost is just going to be ridiculous. So I'm like, I'll sell my soul to a demon car. But as Christine is improving, Arnie is improving, Dennis is in hospital, Arnie ends up getting a girlfriend for the first time ever, ends up being like almost a cool kid. Then Christine goes on a murderous rampage with Arnie behind the wheel, and it's a big showdown at the end. And unfortunately Arnie does die, and then Christine is then shown the metal crusher and is crushed into a little cube, and that's it. And it is just so, it's such a good film. It genuinely is. Like, I love horror films. I love the atmosphere of horror films as well. I feel like sometimes if you don't have the right atmosphere, the right music, it could just fall flat. And this film I've watched several times and I will watch again. But ironically, it's because I enjoyed the film so much that I was like, actually, I think I will get the Stephen King Christine. I mean, obviously you can't see it because it's right behind me, but we've got about 3 shelves worth of Stephen King books. And I can't believe it took me so long to buy Christine. But the film is definitely really, really enjoyable. It gets a 9 out of 10 for me. And if you can ever watch it, watch the version that was released the same year as the book. Because it is just so, I love it. I genuinely do. Because it starts off as a teenager rebelling, and then you realise that actually Christine has got her grill into Arnie, and Arnie will not stand a chance. Now, the book, as always, films I find based on Stephen King's books, although the atmosphere is really good, it misses some key points, and the book has so much more to it. We see the decline of Arnie a lot better. We see the breakdown of his relationship with Lee, his breakdown of his relationship with Dennis and his parents having nervous breakdowns. But also in the book is a major element that's not in the film, and it's that he has the soul of Roland, who's the owner of the car, who dies after he has, not the brother, after he has sold Arnie the car. He dies, and he's basically taking over, and he's sat in this car. And when the murders are happening in the book, they make sure that Arnie's has a solid alibi, and then Roland will go out and drive Christine and kill everyone. And it's a lot bloodier, and it's a lot more atmospheric. And at points as well, Dennis is in the car at one point with Christine with Arnie, and as he's driving through, he gets disorientated because he feels like he's back in the era of when Christine was originally made. And it's just that eerie eeriness to it. But I mean, it still follows sort of like the decline of Arnie and everything. And unfortunately, in the book, Arnie and his parents die, whereas in the film, it's just Arnie. But the book is just, I mean, there have been some questionable books by Stephen King, Elevation, Tommyknockers, the Dark Tower series, to name a few that I'm not a fan of. Again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But this was just like, wow, this is like really well written. The atmosphere is there. The decline is there. It's told from Dennis's point of view, but obviously there's points when Dennis is in hospital. And so he then gets the story secondhand from like Lee, and we get bits from Arnie. But it's interesting to watch as well, because at first it's more with Arnie being like with the car. It's the freedom of the car, because he's a teenager. He's going to go off to college soon. And his parents were like, we've got this perfect life planned out for you. And then Arnie decides, actually, no, I'm better building cars than I am with this. And it's just, it's so good to read, because it's got elements of rebellious teenagers, but like how much pressure do parents put on to the point where the teenager feels like they have to rebel. Because at one point, Arnie was like, I've done everything that you've asked me to. You know, I've never wanted anything. I just want this car. And they even still at this point are like, no, you're not having the car. But it's so good at building up, you know, just occasionally, like when Lee's like sat in the car being like, I feel like this car hates me. I feel like Christine hates me. And Christine's she is a murderous little car. Well, I say little, she's a huge car, but she's a murderous car, is Christine. She out for blood. Because she kills a fair few more people in the book as she does in the film. In fact, she's a lot more sort of single-minded as well, to the point where, I mean, when she's trying to kill Darnell of the garage, she's fully like going into his side of his house, where she's scraping off the bottom of her car, of herself, to kill him, and then she just reverses and just drives away, because she's done what she's meant to do, because Darnell knew too much. And you're like, damn, Christine, rein it in a bit. But honestly, the book is so well written. I would definitely read it again, and it gets a, I'll say an 8 out of 10 for me. I do feel like there was some chapters and some world building, as it were, that wasn't needed, but obviously who am I to, you know, the great Stephen King. But I feel like sometimes it was going on a bit, and I'm like, you could have cut that down a little bit. But it was really enjoyable. Now the plot is vastly different, because as I said, you've got Roland, the brother. Roland is the person that owns the car. In the film, the brother sells the car because Roland's died. In the book, Roland sells the car, then Roland dies, then Roland takes over. I mean, the murder's pretty much the same. Arnie gets bullied. You know, Christine is an evil little thing. There's a showdown at the end. But it is so... I find that whenever books of Stephen King's are being related to screen, like with The Shining, I love both the film and the book, but it does miss sometimes an element on the film, because it's hard to show that. Like, for example, in It as well, where there's a bit where it's just like, he literally just writes, what, you know, it's the worst thing your brain can imagine. So he doesn't even give an explanation of what the end of the book is. So I do find that whenever they adapt Stephen King books, they do sometimes miss a major element. And with this, it is the fact that Roland takes over the soul of Arnie, and you've got that sort of rotting corpse in Arnie's shell almost. But I mean, it's very similar in the fact that Arnie is a teenager, gets a car, and then the showdown between like Dennis and Lee and Christine is just insane. But like, it's so weird as well, because like the book ends with Dennis reading about a murder that's been committed, a hit and run that's been committed that they can't prove, of somebody that had destroyed Christine. And he's like, well, it started again. Whereas in the film, it's quite obvious. They've crushed her into a cube. She's dead. She's gone. She's not dead and gone. She probably will find a way. Christine finds a way. But yes, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, because it is such a vastly different... The bare bones is the same. Arnie gets a car. Dennis doesn't like the car. Lee doesn't like the car. And so they then, you know... But I mean, it's just that the characters are slightly different. The book is a lot creepier. And it's just... It's hard to do. But as it did as it could, considering the year as well. It did what it could. But it gets a 4 out of 5 from me for the plot. Now, obviously, if you agree or disagree with anything that I say, if you know, want to comment, if I've missed anything. I used to discuss, as I said, the plot in its absolute entirety. I feel like if I did this one with this, I would be on this for like 30 minutes. And obviously I appreciate that nobody's got, you know, 30 minutes to be able to spend staring at my lovely face on a Friday afternoon. So it is just sort of the basics with this one. But obviously, if there's any book to film adaptations you would like me to do, even though I am doing them once a month now instead of every other week, I'm happy to add it to my list and get working on that straight away. Thank you so much for your continued support. Click subscribe so you're alerted whenever the next video comes out. And remember to always keep it contento.